In this movie, I'll show you how to upsample an image inside Photoshop and also show you how that compares to capturing real high-resolution data, either with a digital camera or a scanner. And by way of a little bit of a spoiler alert, even though upsampling has improved dramatically inside Photoshop over recent years, it still does not begin to compare to capturing real high-resolution data in the first place. So we're going to start with this low-resolution image here, and for the sake of comparison, I'm going to duplicate it by going up to the Image menu and choosing the Duplicate command. And I'll go ahead and call this new image Upsampled Image, and then I'll click OK. In order to create the new image, press Control plus or Command plus on the Mac to zoom in, and I'll go ahead and drag this title over to the left so it's next door to the very small original. All right, now inside this upsampled image file, I'll go up to the Image menu and choose the Image Size command. Now again, I've got a small dialog box, so I'll go ahead and make it nice and big. And the reason the dialog box keeps showing up small is because I have never clicked on the OK button throughout these movies. But I will be doing so in just a moment, at which point the dialog box will come back nice and large. All right, with the resample checkbox turned on, that's very important if we want to add pixels. You want to make sure the interpolation setting is automatic. That's going to give you the best result where upsampling is concerned. Now, make sure that the width and height values are linked together, and now go ahead and change the resolution value from 100 pixels per inch to 1,000 pixels per inch, which is way more than we need for any printing circumstances, but it is going to be useful for demonstrational purposes. And now I'm just going to go ahead and drag here inside of the preview until we can see this guy's face right there. And if I click and hold, we can see how big the pixels would be if we were to apply no interpolation whatsoever. And then if I release, that's how things look with automatic interpolation, which is pretty darn good, by the way. I will tell you that as recently as Photoshop CS6, so prior to the Creative Cloud, the standard interpolation setting when upsampling was this guy right here, bicubic smoother, and notice how very soft it is. So automatic is clearly an improvement, and it gives us these much better rounded edges. All right, now I'll go ahead and click OK to apply that change. And it is going to take a moment because Photoshop, after all, has to add 10 pixels wide and 10 pixels tall. That is to say, a total of 100 pixels for every pre-existing pixel inside the image. All right, now I want to go ahead and pan to that guy's face. So I'm going to take advantage of that bird's eye technique by pressing and holding the H key and then clicking and holding inside the image. And then I'll scroll to this location right there and release, and then I'll release the H key. All right, so let's see how that compares to just zooming in on that original image. I'll go ahead and switch to the very small image.png file, and I'll drop down to the zoom value down here in the bottom left corner of the window. I'll change it to 1,000%, and I'll press the Enter key or the Return key on the Mac. And then once again, I'll press and hold the H key to get the hand tool on the fly, and I'll click and hold to get that bird's eye function, and I'll go ahead and scroll to this guy's face again, and then release. Now, while the pixel grid is very useful, it's getting in our way where this demonstration is concerned. And so to hide the pixel grid, you go up to the View menu, you choose Show, and then you choose this command right there, Pixel Grid, and that will turn it off like so. All right, so as you can see here, we've got some great big pixels, which means that if we were to print the image very large, let's say poster size, we would get some very choppy results. Compare that with the upsampled version of the image, which is much, much smoother. So in other words, if nothing else, upsampling delivers smooth results inside Photoshop, but that does not really compare to capturing high-resolution data in the first place. I'll go ahead and switch to this image called High Res Scan, which is an extremely high-resolution scan of this classic painting. And you can see, if you take a look at the title tab up here, that we're viewing the image at a scant 10%. So we're only seeing 1 out of every 10 pixels horizontally, 1 out of every 10 pixels vertically. In other words, 1 out of every 100 pixels inside this image. To see 1 image pixel for every screen pixel, I'll press Control-1 or Command-1 on the Mac to zoom in to 100%, and then I'll once again take advantage of that bird's eye technique by pressing and holding the H key. Then I'll click and hold my mouse button, drag this marquee around this guy's face right here, and then release in order to zoom in on the image. And you can see we've got some wonderful detail. All right, so once again, just so we can see the difference, I'll go ahead and switch to the zoomed in version of that very small image. Obviously, we have big choppy transitions in the form of these jagged square pixels. Compare that to the upsampled image, which is extremely smooth by comparison. But take a look at the guy's mustache and his beard and so forth. There's just not anything in the way of meaningful detail. Compare that with the actual high resolution scan version of the image, in which we can see individual hairs, eyelashes, and hairline cracks in the surface of the painting as well. Now, the thing about having a high resolution image is it does contribute to file size. So the more pixels you have, the bigger your image is going to be, and the more work it's going to be for Photoshop to open and modify that image. So for example, if I switch back to the very small image, take a look at this dock option in the lower left corner of the screen. And if you're not seeing it, by the way, you can click on this right pointing arrowhead and choose document sizes. The value before the slash is the flattened version of the image. The value after the slash is how big the image is with layers. None of these images have layers, so both values are going to be the same. But notice that the size is a scant 1.86 megs. That's nothing, by the way. That's a dinky little image. Compared with the high-res scan, which weighs in at 100 times that size, so 186 megs. And what I'm going to tell you is, depending upon your system, over 100 megs is when Photoshop starts slowing down. So if you have a really wicked fast system, no problem, you're going to be able to handle that, especially if you have a flash drive with no moving parts. But if you have a standard computer, then things may start slowing down. But that's not just true of the high-resolution scan, it's true of the upsampled image as well. Notice that it weighs in at that same file size, so it's ultra huge as well. The difference is that it just doesn't contain that wonderful information. So the moral of the story is, if you have to upsample an image for print, go for it. But you're always better off capturing the biggest and best data possible by setting your camera or your scanner to its highest quality setting.